This video is continuation of an earlier video in which we discussed model making and relationship building among variables that come from different files. In this video, we will develop visualization that consists of variables that come from different files. And for this purpose, we will use these questions. The first question is visualization of insured family members of each employee. And for this one, we will use the same data, that's university employees data. So the first step is to import data from Microsoft Excel into Power BI. And we have a file that has three sheets: demographics, department, and payroll. And as mentioned earlier, that the best practice is to transform data to make sure that there are no blank rows or other types of variables. Now, as we can already see that there are empty rows, which means we need to transform this data. So we will choose transform data. In payroll data, there is one row that's blank, so we need to delete it first. So we click on remove rows and then remove top rows. There's only one row. So we enter 1 and then click OK and then use first row as header in order to promote this row as the header. Next we move to departments, and again here are two rows that are empty. We remove these two rows and also use first row as header row. And finally in demographics, again there's one row that's blank, and use first row as header row. Now all these sheets, they appear in order. There are no blank rows, no extra columns. So we will click on close and apply to make sure that these changes, they actually apply to our data. Once this data is imported, we will have a quick look on model building and on relationship to see if all these relationships are those that we are looking for and no spurious relationship is made by BI. So when I click on this one, it shows that there is a relationship between employee ID and employee ID, and that's okay. And over here, employee ID and employee ID, which again is okay. So it means this data is ready to go. As our first question is visualization of insured family members of each employee, for this purpose we will make a bar chart and let's expand them: demographics, department, and payroll. And I will drag names into axis and insured members into values. And it gives us this visualization. Let's see it in focus mode. We need to add labels. In the updated version of Power BI, this formatting option has been moved here. So we click on this one and let's click on data labels, and as you can also see that it appears differently from the previous version. So when we click on data labels, it shows this thing, and it shows about how many family members are insured of different employees. The next question is visualization of names and years of service. And for this purpose, again, we can make a bar chart, and in this bar chart, names and years of service. And one thing, in years of service, we will choose average year of service. Indeed, it's better to just use sum rather than average, because average will be using in a different question that's about department, that keeps department on x-axis. So because in this question we need total years of service, so we will use years of service as such. This figure shows that Harris, Mike and Sebastian, they have highest number of years of service. Our next question is that in which department employees tend to stay the longest, which means for this one we will be choosing department and then years of service. And for this purpose, again, we can make a bar chart, and in this bar chart, department and years of service. Now over here we will use years of service as average. And of course we need to label it, data labels turned on. And when we click on focus mode, it gives us this visualization, which shows that people in operations, they tend to have the highest years of service, they tend to stay longest, that's about 10.5 on average. People in aviation department, they tend to stay 8.2 years, and people in accounts, they tend to stay for about 7.9 years. And this information may be important for human resource people, as they might be interested in retention rate of employees. Our next question is, in which department there is highest variation in employees' salaries, which could be a possible sign of inequity, not necessarily, but possibly. For this one, again, we can make a bar chart, and in this bar chart, a department in axis, and then salaries of people in values, and over here we will choose standard deviation. And again, we will label it, data labels turned on. And when we look at in focus mode, it shows that people, employees in aviation, they show the highest deviation or variance in their salary, followed by people from computer science, and then followed by people from sales. Standard deviation in the salary of aviation employees is around $10,700. Standard deviation in the employees of computer science department is 9,600 department and $8,500 in sales. Our next question is, which department incurs the highest payroll expenses in terms of employee salaries? For this one, department in axis and salaries in values, and data labels turned on. Now when we look at this data, it shows that there is some problem the first category appears as blank, and it is also affecting others, so which means that our data needs some cleaning, or there is some blank rows in our data which we did not fix earlier. So for this purpose we will go back to transform data. In transform data we will go to payroll sheets, and in payroll sheet we will see where is the problem. So here are two rows that are redundant. They do not have any values, and we need to remove them. So we remove bottom rows. We need to remove two bottom rows. Two rows. Okay. And then make sure to click on close and apply. And as you can see, by removing those rows, that blank category has been removed and these values are also changed. So this is the true representation. It shows that people in computer science, computer science department incurs a salary of $296,000. Aviation incurs 194,000, followed by accounts. So computer science is the one that incurs highest payroll expenses. Then our next question is, average salary gender wise, are there significant differences in salary? For this question we make a visualization whereby gender and salary, and we need to use average salary because we cannot use a sum of salary, because a number of male, female and other gender categories, they would be different. So let's use average, and then click on data labels. And when we look this in focus mode, then we can see once we move cursor on individual bars, then it shows that in case of males, average salary is 57,187.91. In case of others it's 56,995, and in case of female it's 56,772. Over here Power BI has rounded off these figures and therefore they appear same. So it means that there are not significant differences in general in salaries. So we move to the next question, and next question is that, is there appears to be any correlation between year of service and average salary? So let's make a line chart for this one to see. And for this one, year of service goes on x-axis and salary on y, and for salary we will use average salary. And when we see it in focus mode, it shows this type of line graph which shows there is a significant variation around 55,000 or close to that, and there does not appear to be any pattern that could be meaningfully interpreted. Next question is, make a slicer and show different aspects of each employees by clicking names of each. And for this purpose we will use the slicer function, and this is a slicer function that's very important, very useful. And in slicer function we can use like different things. We can use different parameters, different variables like department names or employee names, etc. So let's see our department name. We can drag it into this one, and it would need a little bit formatting because they are too small. So click on values and we increase this size. Okay. Now let's say when we click on law department or humanities department, then we'll be getting these figures only about humanities department, which means it shows that one employee David, he is from humanities department, and this visualization is specifically showing data about David, and then all other thing about gender and other thing. Similarly, if we say about physical education, and it will be giving data specifically about physical education. Another thing that we can do is we can also use names of employees in slicer, and let's say when I click on Fisher, these visualizations, they give specifically data about Fisher. So for example, it says that Fisher has two family members who are insured. Fisher has about 9.5 years of service, and Fisher is from aviation department, and other details. His salary is about $7,012, and his information about gender like that. So this slicer function is very useful because it gives us more refined information. Data in these visualizations comes from different files. So data about salary is in payroll sheet. Data about employee ID is in demographics, and data about departments is in a separate sheet. Power BI pulls data from different sheets and combines them to make these visualizations.